Welcome back. I'm Bree Beers of Bree Beers and Associates. So today we are talking about business use of our vehicle. When you use your vehicle for business purpose, you are entitled to a tax deduction for the miles you're driving on your car. So today we are going to talk about what those miles mean to you monetarily. What can they actually add up to, and what do they mean on your tax return when you're filing and when all is said and done. So before we can dive into how much is this deduction worth, we have to talk about the two different methods we have for calculating and taking this mileage deduction. So there's the standard mileage rate deduction, and then there's the actual expenses deduction. We're going to start with the standard mileage deduction because it is the easiest one to use, and it's honestly the most used one by taxpayers, specifically those that prepare their own tax returns. So with the standard mileage deduction, you guys, you are tracking all of your mileage that you drive for your business, and then you are getting a certain amount of money for each mile you drive. All right, in 2020, the standard mileage rate was 57.5 cents per mile. In 2021, that's down a bit, it's 56 cents per mile. So what does that mean? That means at the end of the year, after you've been tracking all your business miles, let's say you tracked that you drove 1,000 business miles. All right, that means that 1,000 business miles is going to calculate or translate into a $560 tax deduction on your business return. Okay, that's pretty substantial. All right, for every 2 miles you're driving for business purposes, you're knocking $1 off your taxable income. So I just gave you a really good example, a really easy example of how you can calculate your business mileage. However, if you're using a tax prep software or a tax preparer, they're likely just going to ask you what was your business mileage for the tax year, and then they'll calculate it. So you don't have to worry about knowing the rate, that 56 cents a mile, and calculating it. You just give your total miles driven for business use to your tax preparer, or you put it into the tax software, and the software or the preparer will do the math for you. So the actual cost deduction does take a little more work, a little more record keeping and tracking to come to calculate, to get, but it can also result in a bigger tax deduction. To take the actual cost deduction for your business mileage, you are going to have two things. You're going to have to track two different buckets of information, okay? You're going to have to figure out your business percentage use of your vehicle, and then you're going to have to track all of your expenses on top of that. All right, so let's start here with calculating your business use percentage of your vehicle. All right, so I have another video on tracking all of your mileage, so check that video out. But after you've tracked it at the end of the year, you're going to add up all of your business miles, okay? And then you're also going to add up all of your total miles that you drove. All right, so let's talk numbers again. Let's say you drove 10,000 miles, you put 10,000 miles total on your car for the year, and you had 2,000 business miles. 2,000 divided by 10,000, that's 20%. So that means you get to deduct 20% of all of your actual costs of maintaining and owning your vehicle as a business deduction. All right, so that is step one, is figuring out your business use percentage of your vehicle. That part's probably the easier of the two. The next one is tracking your expenses. All right, and this is the part that gets tedious, and this is the reason most taxpayers end up taking the standard mileage deduction, because tracking all of your expenses on your vehicle becomes kind of tedious. But it really can add up to a lot more than that standard deduction. So it's worth it if you're dedicated, or if you can do this, okay? So a few tips for tracking those actual expenses. So first, we need to know what constitutes an actual expense, right? So what do you get to include in this bucket of auto expenses, all right? And it's going to be fuel, it's gas, it's going to be repairs and maintenance, so taking it to the shop, getting an oil change, getting your tires rotated, all of the maintenance involved with keeping your car. It's going to include your car washes. It sounds weird, but that's going to be built into that bucket. And then it's either going to be your lease payments if you lease the car, or it's going to be a combination of the interest paid on your auto loan if you have one, and whether or not you do have a loan or not. If you own the car, you're going to be able to depreciate the value of your vehicle. And that right there, the lease payments or the depreciation of owning your vehicle, are what really make this more valuable as a tax deduction than taking the standard deduction, because that money really does, it can be huge. So if you have a tax preparer or you're using tax prep software, all right, you're going to be able to put your mileage in and it'll calculate your business percentage. And then you're going to be able to put in your total expenses, okay, for your auto. So all of your repairs, your maintenance, your fuel, your car washes, your purchase price if you purchased it, your lease price, all of those things we just talked about. Okay, you're either going to be able to shove that off to your tax preparer or put it into the tax software, and then it's going to calculate your tax deduction for you. Okay, thank goodness you don't have to do that. All right, and what's nice about, I think most of the tax prep software is out there, but I know tax preparers out there will optimize this for you guys, meaning they will take all the information you give them and they will tell you which method, the actual or the standard mileage deduction, is going to be more beneficial to you. And so you can make an educated decision on which one to take. So that's great. That's one of those reasons to have a tax preparer. I think some of those tax softwares out there, tax prep softwares, do that as well. So definitely look into that and figure out what's the difference between taking my actual versus my standard. All right, because it could save you a substantial amount of money to do one over the other. So in the end, the question I get asked the most is, which one's better, standard or actual? And the answer is there's pros and cons to both, right? So the standard mileage deduction is way easier to track, it's way easier to stick with, and it may or may not be one may or may not be more financially beneficial over the other, right? But the standard mileage is, like I just said, easier to handle. The actual expenses, that's the one that usually will give you a bigger tax deduction. However, it is also important, there's some underlying pros and cons to these, you guys, that you definitely want to talk to your tax preparer or use the little help button if you're self-preparing, the info button, to give you more details. So my advice to you is to either utilize a tax preparer or definitely use the help function of your tax prep software to figure out which one's better. You actually can go back and forth year after year. You can take the standard mileage one year and then the actual miles the other. However, when you take actual, there's some extra benefits you could take, some extra deductions, and once you take those, you can't go backwards. So that is definitely where taking or having a tax preparer on your side to explain that could help. But know that there are so many options out there. You can go back and forth. One year, standard may be more beneficial to you, and the next year, maybe actual will be. So you can jump back and forth as long as you haven't crossed any of those rules that make it so you can't. So really, which one is better is going to depend on your specific tax situation, you guys. So look at, talk to your preparer, put it in the system, look at both, compare them side by side, and figure out which one is more beneficial to you in this current tax year. If you guys have any questions about what we talked about today, go ahead and leave a comment below. And then I highly, highly suggest you head on over to our Facebook community, Money, Taxes, and Finance for Small Business, because these topics are what we talk about on a regular basis and have live trainings on every week. You can access that group by clicking the link in the description box. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and while you're loving on me hard, go ahead and hit the notification bell so you never miss a future video.